Good evening, I'm Allie Rogan. John Yang is away. There are moments in time when history possibly pivots, and today, in a stunning act of regime change, the U.S. military captured and brought Venezuelan President Nicolás Maduro to U.S. soil. Not long after that, in a remarkable declaration, President Trump announced the U.S. would, quote, run Venezuela, and warned of a new era of United States domination over Latin America. We will get an on-the-ground report from Venezuela's capital, Caracas, in a moment, but we begin our coverage with Nick Schifrin.
It was just after midnight over Caracas when U.S. helicopters with Delta Force soldiers descended toward Nicolás Maduro's compound. Nearby residents filmed and cowered from U.S. strikes on at least 4 locations. All part of the mission to capture and extract Maduro. By 2 a.m. local, they had him, and by 3 a.m. he was shackled aboard the USS Iwo Jima, the dictator-turned-detainee of the U.S. Department of Justice. U.S. military officials said U.S. helicopters took fire as they left Venezuela, but remained able to fly. A source familiar tells PBS NewsHour a small CIA team arrived in August and created extraordinary insight into Maduro's pattern of life that made grabbing him seamless.
This was one of the most stunning, effective, and powerful displays of American military might and competence.
In Palm Beach today, after he and his team watched the operation unfold overnight, President Trump announced the operation was not only about regime change.
We are going to run the country until such time as we can do a safe, proper, and judicious transition.
President Trump said Secretary of State Marco Rubio had spoken to Venezuelan Vice President Delcy Rodríguez, who was sworn in to replace Maduro.
If you want to find the best comparison in terms of what the United States thus far has done in Venezuela, you should look to the 1989 U.S. invasion of Panama, where under Bush 41, the United States invaded Panama with the ostensible goal of removing its leader, Manuel Noriega, who had long been a close ally of the United States and the CIA. The CIA, when run by former President Bush, when he ran the CIA, Noriega had been a close U.S. ally. And then at some point, he started defying the U.S., and so the U.S. indicted him for drug trafficking, claimed that he was shipping drugs to the United States, invaded Panama, killed several thousand Panamanians, a few dozen American troops were killed, hundreds were injured. We removed Noriega from power, brought him to Miami, put him on trial. He was convicted of drug trafficking. He went to prison. Who benefited from that? Did the flow of drugs into the United States stop? Was the flow of drugs into the United States impeded? Do you think in the 1980s and 1990s, as a result of that operation, Americans had difficulty getting cocaine or other drugs who wanted it? Obviously not. The drug war is nothing but a whole history of failures. It led to a lot of instability and violence in Panama, but it achieved very little. Bush 41 was heralded on the cover of the New York Times for having gotten rid of his WIMP label that had been attached to him. But other than that, very little good was done.
Hey guys, this is Tommy with Tommy Nation Politics. How's everyone doing today?
June 1954. Over Guatemala City, US-made planes dive out of the clouds and drop leaflets that read, "President Arbenz must resign immediately." Hours later, the same planes bomb the National Palace, attacking a government that came to power through the first free elections in the country's 130-year history. Guatemala's crime that demanded its capital be bombed was trying to break the power of a handful of families and one foreign corporation.
Venezuela's ousted leader, Nicolás Maduro, and his wife are in U.S. custody tonight, accused of narco-terrorism charges. Thanks for joining us. I'm Alex Bell. U.S. forces captured the two this weekend in a deadly U.S. military raid. We have team coverage on this tonight as this rapidly developing story continues with the impact felt here at home and also around the world. This morning, Maduro and his wife faced a judge in federal court. Both were charged in a 4-count indictment. Prosecutors accuse Maduro and his co-defendants of working with drug traffickers in Colombia and Mexico to move tons of cocaine into the U.S. over the past 25 years. Both pleaded not guilty, with Maduro declaring himself innocent and, quote, a decent man. His lawyers are expected to contest the legality of his arrest, arguing he is immune from prosecution as a sovereign head of a foreign state. Venezuela's acting president is now Delcy Rodríguez. She was sworn in this afternoon by her brother, National Assembly President Jorge Rodríguez. Delcy Rodríguez has demanded the U.S. return of Maduro, although later in a social media post, she did invite a collaboration with President Trump and, quote, respectful relations with the U.S. Tonight, both Republicans and Democrats are speaking out about the U.S. actions in Venezuela.
I think we're just going to kill people that are bringing drugs into our country.
Take a look at this map showing the U.S. military buildup in the Caribbean in the last few weeks. The U.S. has already airstriked a bunch of fishing boats. What is happening here? Well, the Trump administration says that they're confronting the Maduro government in Venezuela for smuggling drugs into the United States. The only problem is Venezuela doesn't account for much of the drugs coming to the U.S., so why do this? To understand the real reasons behind this, I want to take you back to a private meeting that happened in Washington last month, where the World Bank, the International Monetary Fund, Barclays, and a bunch of hedge funds and investment firms had a meeting with Venezuelan opposition leader Maria Corina Machado. On the agenda, investment opportunities in Venezuela after Nicolás Maduro is removed from power. And what would be the biggest investment opportunities in a Venezuela that's more friendly to the West? Of course, it's oil. Venezuela has the largest proven reserves of oil in the entire world. The big oil companies want in on the action, but they had to leave Venezuela when Hugo Chavez kicked them out. They would love to get back in, but first, they need Maduro out of the way. And it looks like the Trump administration is happy to oblige.
These nationwide exercises are called Sovereignty 2017, and they're President Nicolás Maduro's answer to what he calls the biggest threat of foreign aggression to Venezuela in 200 years of independence.
I feel prepared, but we need to prepare even more. This is for the fatherland.
Here at Venezuela's largest military academy, civilians from all over Caracas are being taught the basics, from manning an anti-aircraft battery, assembling an Uzi submachine gun, to learning to use a rifle.
This year, President Maduro called on hundreds of thousands of civilians to be trained and armed in defense of the revolution. Now, Donald Trump's assertion that he will not rule out a military option to restore democracy to Venezuela has given Maduro the perfect pretext for this.
Venezuela already has a 230,000-strong army and almost 1 million militiamen and women.
What we have here is the unity of the people and the military against the interventionist actions of U.S. President Trump, who wants to put his Yankee boots in Venezuela.
But these 2-day-long exercises also aim to prepare civilians to fight the so-called internal enemy. National Guardsmen gave lessons on how to tackle demonstrators. The idea is to prepare them should opponents renew their campaign of civil disobedience against the government. In the opposition stronghold of Táchira near the Colombia border, Special Forces battalions weren't just training, but hunting down what authorities described as violent groups, killing at least 6. It's unclear who they were. But what is clear is that at this time of economic turmoil and increasing international pressure to restore independent democratic institutions, Maduro's goal is to show strength, albeit through the barrel of a gun. Lucia Newman, Al Jazeera, Caracas.
Peace through strength, guys. Where have I heard that before? Peace through strength. Well, this is Tommy with Tommy Nation Politics, and you're listening to a free-thinking, innovative, open-minded, new independent progressive media. We're on the hunt for truth and to recognize solutions we can all get behind to promote the general welfare and secure the blessings of liberty, like the Constitution enshrined for us to do. I'm your host today, and we're particularly tracing one of the most consistent threads in recent U.S. foreign policy in the Western Hemisphere. The Trump administration's campaign of pressure and bullying and puppetry, economic puppetry, and other kinds as well, guys. When it comes to the Maduro government in Venezuela, so you just saw a video 8 years ago talking about the military action that Trump was going to be taking when it comes to Venezuela. And this is really the first step in many steps. Let's just put it that way, guys. When it comes to the regime change war plan that Trump particularly had with the Venezuelan government, and Maduro in particular.
Su plan de un cambio de régimen violento.
That's Venezuela's president, Nicolás Maduro, accusing the U.S. government of planning a violent regime change in his country. His comments come against the backdrop of a U.S. military buildup in the Caribbean. On Friday, 10 stealth fighter jets were ordered to join the already bristling military presence.
We don't want drugs killing our people.
It's there, President Donald Trump said, as part of a crackdown on groups funneling drugs into the U.S. This was his response when asked about regime change on Friday.
Well, we're not talking about that, but we are talking about the fact that you had an election which was a very strange election, to put it mildly. I'm being very nice when I say that. I can only say that billions of dollars of drugs are pouring into our country from Venezuela.
Trump demonstrated his new approach in his drugs war on Tuesday. This strike killed 11 people and sank a boat the president said was transporting illegal narcotics. On Thursday, the Pentagon accused Venezuela of a highly provocative move after 2 Venezuelan fighter jets flew near a U.S. Navy warship. Trump's administration has also sought to tie Maduro's government to narco trafficking, allegations which are denied. Specifically, Trump has accused Maduro of running the Tren de Aragua gang, which the U.S. declared a terrorist organization in February. Maduro has denied any connection to Tren de Aragua. His government says the group was rendered inactive in Venezuela by a prison raid in 2023. On Friday, Maduro said Venezuela has always been willing to talk. He added that he respects Trump, but that he also demands respect for our country, for our people. On Friday, some of those people were enjoying the sun on the beaches of La Guaira, seemingly unfazed by the military buildup. Student Vanessa Sanchez said everything seems calm. But we are aware of the international tensions, she added. Let's hope for the best.
I've always wondered why he had such a hard-on for, Maduro in the first place, but it's really starting to come together. We're really starting to kind of understand this, guys, and to first understand the regime change, what's going on
My
here.
administration reversed the failing policies of the previous administration on Cuba.
You've got to really understand from his own words.
We are supporting the hopes of Cubans, Nicaraguans, and Venezuelans to restore democracy. The United States is leading a 59-nation diplomatic coalition against the socialist dictator of Venezuela, Nicolás Maduro.
Guys, that was the State of the Union in 2020. You'll notice that both the people behind him, Vice President Mike Pence, his vice president, and Speaker of the House at the time, Nancy Pelosi, both rose for applause at the sound of a regime change war with the president of Venezuela, Nicolás Maduro. So it doesn't seem like it's a one-party effort. It seems like a duopoly effort to overthrow a government that has nationalized the oil for their citizens and instead put that oil into the hands of wealthy oligarchs, of international corporations that do the bidding of revenue and growth profits. And Trump does the bidding of them through campaign finance contributions. But this journey has really had a lot of things coming to its head. We first, of course, had the statement of Trump on the White House when he first became president, and I never really noticed this because it was such a failure, but if we just read along, guys, we will see on whitehouse.gov during the time of the president's first term, we will see a statement regarding Juana Guaido. Let's read it, guys, together. So this was whitehouse.gov, January 23rd, 2019, which was the first Trump term. And he, in the White House, if you go to whitehouse.gov, it's nothing but what the president says. So it's propaganda, but it's very interesting to look at the perspectives of other people who are trying to initiate policy changes through propaganda techniques. You've got to study these guys because you have to recognize what's true, what's not, and what the motivation is, mens rea. On January 29th, 2019, this was the perspective of Donald Trump. Today, I'm officially recognizing, this is 2019, guys. Today, I'm officially recognizing the president of the Venezuelan National Assembly, Juan Guaido. Juan Guaido as the interim president of Venezuela. In this role, as the only legitimate branch of government duly elected by the Venezuelan people, the National Assembly invoked the country's constitution to declare Nicolás Maduro illegitimate, and the office of the presidency therefore vacant. The people of Venezuela have courageously spoken out against Maduro and his regime change and demanded freedom and the rule of law. Once again, the same strategy as Iraq war, as Afghanistan. We are going to liberate them. We're going to free them. We're going to give them democracy. It's the same lies, the same spin, the same framing that they used to invade a sovereign nation of Iraq and kill hundreds of thousands of women and children, along with one of our top allies at one time, Saddam Hussein. Did you know he was one of our top allies? Did you know Osama bin Laden was one of our top allies? Did you know Muammar Gaddafi was one of our top allies? What do they all have in common, guys? What do all of our top allies have in common? Eventually, this is what I'm saying about Israel. This is what I'm trying to get Israel to notice. If you guys are willing to stay on board for the long haul, just know that eventually we will get our sights turned around to you. We are not a shining beacon on a hill. We are literally a country of sheep, ruled by pigs, owned by wolves. That's who we are. So if I were you, Israel, I'd just take the $300 billion that you have now and walk away before you end up like Saddam Hussein, Osama bin Laden, Juan Guaido, Volodymyr Zelensky, by the way. I predict that Volodymyr Zelensky this year is going to have a car incident where his car blows up, and we are probably going to blame Putin over it. In any case, he's a loose thread. He's a loose end, and we tie those up always. We saw in the 2020 State of the Union, not only the president of the United States praised Juan Guaido as the legitimate president of Venezuela, but not only that, but watch this, guys.
Reverse the failing policies of the previous administration on Cuba. We are supporting the hopes of Cubans, Nicaraguans, and Venezuelans to restore democracy. The United States is leading a 59-nation diplomatic coalition against the socialist dictator of Venezuela, Nicolás Maduro.
Watch your speaker. Look at your speaker. Look at the speaker, guys. She is in agreement. These two parties, bro.
Yes, sir, no. Please, go ahead.
Yeah, is there a message here for Cuba?
Cuba is an interesting case. Cuba is, not doing very well right now. That system has not been a very good one for Cuba. The people there have suffered for many, many years. And I think Cuba is going to be something we'll end up talking about because Cuba is a failing nation right now, very badly failing nation. And we want to help the people. It's very similar in the sense that we want to help the people in Cuba, but we want to also help the people that were forced out of Cuba and living in this country. Do you want to say something about that, Marco, please?
Well, I mean, I just gave you a statement a few minutes ago about, when the president speaks, you should take him seriously. Suffice it to say, Cuba is a disaster. It's run by incompetent, senile men, and in some cases,
לגבי ונצואלה, אני רוצה להביע את תמיכת הממשלה כולה בהחלטה הנחושה והפעולה הנחושה של ארצות הברית להחזיר חירות וצדק גם לאזור הזה של העולם. אני חייב להגיד שבכלל באמריקה הלטינית כרגע יש מהפך שאנחנו רואים אותו בכמה וכמה מדינות שחוזרות לציר האמריקני ולא במפתיע גם לקשר עם מדינת ישראל. אנחנו מברכים על כך, אנחנו מברכים את הנשיא טראמפ על החלטתו, גם מצדיעים ל...
The 2025 Nobel Peace Prize to Venezuelan opposition leader Maria Corina Machado has raised eyebrows across the global south.
Maria Corina Machado, gracias. Thank you so much for this interview.
Thank you, and we'll stay in touch. And I promise we one day we'll have a close relationship between Venezuela and Israel. And I believe, and I can announce this, that our government will move our Israeli embassy to Jerusalem. That will be part of our support to the state of Israel.
Her lesser-known ties to Israel's far right are now drawing scrutiny. Following the award's announcement, a Norwegian MP said the Nobel Committee has strayed from its mission, noting that Machado personally signed a cooperation pact with Israel's ruling extremist right-wing Likud party, the same party leading the genocide in Gaza. The MP argued that honoring her under such circumstances undermines the very spirit of the Peace Prize. Machado later pledged to recognize Jerusalem as Israel's capital, declaring that Venezuela's struggle is the struggle of Israel. After the award, Machado reportedly thanked President Trump, calling the U.S. her main ally, and saying she accepted the prize in his honor.
The person who actually got the Nobel Prize called me and said, I'm accepting this in honor of you because you really deserved it. A very nice thing to do. I didn't say then give it to me though. I think she might have. She was very nice, and I've been helping her along the way. They need a lot of help in Venezuela. It's a basic disaster. And you could also say it was given out for 24, and I was running for office in 24. All of the transactions that we did in terms of closing. But there are those that say we did so much that they should have done it. But I'm happy because I saved millions of lives.
Praised in Washington and Tel Aviv as a champion of democracy, Machado's win is viewed by others as part of a broader power play, one tied to Venezuela's immense oil and mineral reserves.
Ni electricidad, ni agua, ni combustible, bloqueo total, invasión de Gaza. Ahí en un pequeño espacio viven millones de seres humanos que ya tienen décadas siendo bombardeados, torturados, atacados, perseguidos, martirizados. Ese es el pueblo sagrado de Gaza, y el mundo tiene que reaccionar y decir no al genocidio contra el pueblo de Gaza, no al genocidio contra el pueblo palestino. El mundo cristiano, musulmano, judaico, el mundo del sur tiene que reaccionar.
Hey guys, this is Tommy with Tommy Nation Politics, free-thinking, innovative, open-minded, new progressive media. Are you someone who doesn't bend in the will of conventional wisdom? Someone who rebels, questions authority, who doesn't just watch the mainstream media, go along with all the bandwagon mentality? If so, www.tommynationpolitics.com. We're free-thinking, innovative, open-minded, new, independent, progressive media. And today, I welcome you guys to Operation South American Oil. Liberate South American Oil. It's a tale as old as time, guys. And to tell the story, I'm here with my co-host, Jamar Jabari, a longtime co-host. I like to call him my co-host because, he's a good friend, and he's like the yin to my yang. I'm very, emotional. He's very factual. I think together we make a good progressive, movement. So, welcome back, Jamar, to Tommy Nation.
Thank you for having me. What's up?
Well, bro, a lot is up right now, and I don't know if you noticed, but there was a new indictment in the Southern District Court of New York, where Pam Bondi, the DOJ, has decided to. I guess she indicted. She indicted under a. It was sealed. It was a sealed indictment, which I don't know what that means. Do you know what a sealed indictment is?
Nah. You might have to get a lawyer on for that.
I think it was an indictment in a secret court, like a FISA court. I think they're going back to their old tricks like they used to. They're using all the kinds of different propaganda, and just give you guys an example of what I'm talking about. This is a throwback, guys.
Who's being indicted? Maduro or
Maduro's being indicted. They're doing a humiliation ritual. Back in the days when the Romans conquered these people, and they would come into the Roman cities, and they'd be in chains, and then you'd have the general with the chariot, right?
Right.
And then they'd be throwing things at him. Shame, 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 right? So that's what we do, but we do it a little bit more different because it's a modern era. Nobody wants to go outside and get shot and whatever. So we do it by video cameras and things like that. But they literally they touched down at Newburgh, New York, and then they drove all the way to the Southern District Court of New York. So people were like chanting USA, and they had like the door open. So they were clearly flaunting the fact that they got him, and they're criminals.
Well, did you see the update on the analysis of what they presume as a cartel?
No.
TRT dropped an article last afternoon, and they said that the DOJ quietly backtracked on acknowledging that the cartel in Venezuela actually exists. So they basically just said that the cartel in Venezuela does not exist. So what is he locked up for? If this was the whole reason to grab him, and you're saying that the cartel doesn't exist anymore, what is he locked up for now?
Well, he's locked up because he was indicted by the Attorney General of the United States. Now, whether or not she has the evidence to keep him there,
right?
First of all, Jamar, how embarrassing would it be that Pam Bondi loses at the Epstein files and then she loses at convicting Maduro? How much of a loser would this? Oh my God!
Trump will probably fire her. They haven't been well with any of the prosecutions that they have done. Even the guy that threw a ham sandwich at the ICE.
I know that.
He walked. They haven't been doing very well at all in federal at all. They have had failures after failure. So if Maduro walks, and there's a big if, what does this mean? Do you return him over to ICE and he gets sent back to Venezuela because his wife is also indicted too, which makes no sense. What do you do with this if he walks?
Well, I mean, first of all, I think that everybody in the Trump administration needs to go to jail because this was not only a kidnapping. There's no warrant. There's no warrant except for their indictment and that they got from a grand jury that was sealed. So we have no idea where the grand jury came from, who the judge signed off on it. We have no idea what Congress was taken aback by this whole thing. They didn't vote on anything. They didn't vote a declaration of war. We have no jurisdiction in Venezuela. Right. We have no authority. And so this is clearly not only the war crimes that we commit with the fishermen boats, but like this is clearly an act of war and military action that was not caused by any kind of aggression from and we know this. And now this whole narco terrorism thing is starting to just wash away. They're starting to completely forget about the fact that they mentioned this. But I want to ask you, Jamar, if you remember this throwback. I know you do. But guys, just to remind you.
My administration reversed the failing policies of the previous administration on Cuba. We are supporting the hopes of Cubans, Nicaraguans, and Venezuelans to restore democracy. The United States is leading a 59-nation diplomatic coalition against the socialist dictator of Venezuela, Nicolás Maduro. Maduro is an illegitimate ruler, a tyrant who brutalizes his people, but Maduro's grip on tyranny will be smashed and broken. Here this evening is a very brave man who carries with him the hopes, dreams, and aspirations of all Venezuelans. Joining us in the gallery is the true and legitimate president of Venezuela, Juan Guaido. Mr. President, please take this message back to your family.
So, do you remember that? So, Trump's little theatrical capturing of the Venezuelan president Maduro has now sparked us into like a political fallout that's going global. We've got a lot of things happening with American companies installing their oil, because Trump essentially said, we're going to run it. And he pretty much said at the press conference, did you hear? He said, we're going to have our oil companies go in and make a lot of money for the country. That's a quote. So where's the narco terrorism? What happened to the drugs? All of a sudden, the oil companies are going in and making a lot of money for the country. This is like a whole different story now. I'm wondering how the pivot. I mean, I don't understand like the Trump supporters at this moment. I feel like they're literally like the Zionists. They're like every time you talk to a Trump supporter or a Zionist, it's hard for them to even like
even answer the question. They're just like trying to distract so much from no new
Everything.
war,
Emotional.
genocide, from we're the most moral army to like we are Christians, we're Christian country, but we like attack. Like this is none of it makes sense anymore. Nobody. I don't know. How do you feel about this? Do you have anything to say about this, Jim?
Juan Guaido is still alive and well. I just want people to know that. So when they talk about how Maduro's a dictator, Maria Machado is still alive and well and is lying, saying that she had to leave Venezuela. She was a National Assembly member that was voted in, just like Juan Guaido was. There are still opposition leaders in the National Assembly that have been voted in that are still serving in Venezuela. So to say that this guy has killed any opposition, they're still alive, they're still serving. They are still elected officials, and what we don't understand is that when Trump said that he's going to control Venezuela, the government is still Nicolás Maduro's administration. Delcy Rodríguez, who was the vice president, she was sworn in with Nicolás Maduro's son, who was named Nicole Maduro. It's a little shorter version of his father's name. And he did that because there was progressives going around saying that she betrayed him and gave Trump Nicolás Maduro. So the son was a part of the sworn in, so to show that they are still a united administration. The videos are going around, which I post on my page, of showing that there are people throughout the streets conducting business. They have weapons. There's militias plus the military. There is no American presence right now. There was a conflict going on outside the palace. I had a contact send me videos that I also posted on Instagram. The contact doesn't know exactly who was fighting back and forth. There was drones. There was American drones there. Still no military presence. But we do know that the CIA has been operating in Venezuela for months now, prepping for this moment. This wasn't just a spontaneous kidnapping. This was absolutely strategic, illegal. Latin America's pissed. The president of Chile yesterday literally said, Venezuela today, who else tomorrow? Because Donald Trump did not just threaten Venezuela. He threatened Cuba. He threatened Colombia. And Gustavo Petro, who is the president of Colombia, is talking a lot of junk. He said, come and get me then. If you really about it, come and get me. Colombia is a different beast from Venezuela. They are the axes of NATO. They have NATO weapons. They have a lot of different upgraded weaponry that was given to them by us when we were backing their dictator before Gustavo was elected. So does Trump want a full-out war with Latin America, just like how we did during the Monroe Doctrine? It sounds like that's what he wants. He called it the Donald Doctrine now. I think the reason why he's doing this is because he wants to make sure that everybody that has been doing business with China and Russia in Latin America no longer do business. He's trying to keep the empire making money. He doesn't want the Panama Canal to go to China. He doesn't want any resources.
He doesn't want Greenland in Denmark.
Greenland too, exactly. So this is more than just only Venezuela. This is about making sure you keep Latin America in line.
It's about
and if anyone
domination.
say anything, they will get God.
We're as literally as hedonistic and as sadistic as the Roman Empire at its crumbling. And so, I guess this has sparked global outrage. The UN condemnations from Russia, China, accusations of violating international law, which they did. You can't go to a sovereign nation and take somebody else's fucking what if they took Donald?
Right.
I would be cheering in the streets.
Right. That's what a lot of Trump supporters that are disagreeing with this operation are saying. It's like, if we start kidnapping people, then that gives a narrative that everyone else in other countries can try and kidnap other opposition leaders, other foreign leaders around the world, and then they'll just use it in court as, well, the Americans did it. Why can't we go and grab somebody if we wanted to? It could be a precedent for chaos. Not only just that, the next leader after Trump, he could use that as a excuse for him to be crazy and whatever he wanted to do. Saying, well, Donald Trump was able to go and kidnap whoever he wanted to kidnap, and you guys didn't prosecute him, so why can't I do that?
They don't think that far ahead, Jabbar.
International law is dead.
Because all of this propaganda is the same exact propaganda as the Iraq War. We're going to liberate the people. He's he's killing his own people, the human shields. I mean, and then they go in there. The CIA already just is doing psyops in there. They make it dark, and then Trump just like blabs about how the CIA was in there doing ops. The whole thing is hilarious because this is like the Iraq War, except like we all know what's going on because he's not even sugarcoating it.
Yeah, and that's the difference between him and the Democrats. You know, the Democrats, if they was to do this, they will say it's about democracy and blah, blah, blah. But he's open like a book. He's not lying to you. And I respect people that don't lie. He said it's about oil. When you look at his whole talk about Venezuela, he never mentions democracy. He mentions oil 24/7.
Well, he mentions narco terrorism.
And then he mentions the narcos terrorism. But clearly that's been debunked now because the DOJ just backtrack the acknowledgement of the cartel.
You should read Pam Bondi's affidavit. It's like literally like on the second headline, there's like a misspelling. I'm like, who are these people? And then so like basically, the Republicans are largely supportive. The Democrats not so much. John Fetterman is standing up for this, saying it's a great idea.
Yeah, John Fetterman's a Republican. He's not.
Supposedly
he needs to just join the true party.
But there's two people that are really, really, really supportive of this. And those are the Hispanics from South America, whose parents and families, they were refugees of Cuba and refugees of Venezuela. One of these in particular.
Oh, that's
you told me about this woman.
I feel so bad.
The Nobel laureate.
Oh, how rich was their family? Oh,
I know that Marco Rubio, Miss Marco, he was so rich he could afford to be in a mansion while he was his daddy was slinging cocaine.
Right?
And he had to like literally deny that. So making a narco terrorism. Miss Marco can tell you about it. Miss Marco can tell you about it.
Tommy, these people that you talk about are sons and daughters of aristocrats. There's a joke that a lot of Latin people that are poor make jokes about how majority of these people that come from these countries that say, "Oh, I fled communism" and stuff. They had money. They had German parents. So this dude literally was like, "Yo, they got German grandparents and shit like that." Like these are the wealth of Latin America that fled because they couldn't make the bread that they wanted to make because communism, which basically is a theory. There is no communist country. It's all socialism. The end goal to communism is from socialism. It goes capitalism, socialism, then communism. No one has ever achieved communism yet. Everyone is still social.
Except Krypton.
Except for Krypton. Socialists literally kick out these capitalists. And that's where you see a lot of these people coming in. When you like Batista's daughter, for instance, the former dictator of Cuba before Fidel Castro threw him out. His daughter is in Miami, and she's poor, broke, all this stuff. A lot of these people that fled to Miami were aristocrats and stuff like that. And they're cheering on. They're happy that Maduro's gone, the Venezuelans all around. But when I put the things that you see on Twitter, the things that you see on Facebook and stuff of the marches that are going on, those marches are not all pro-Maduro marches. Those marches are protesting America bombing their country and killing 80 people. They don't like the fact that we did that. There are people that are pro-Maduro in those marches, but it's a solidarity march between Venezuelans and Venezuela saying we do not want to be bombed by a foreign country. We don't want you coming in here, kidnapping people and telling us who's going to be our leader. You know what I'm saying? That's what those marches are really about.
There's definitely a mixed reaction going on with the people, just like there would be a mixed reaction here. But let me tell you, you might think that these people were rich aristocrats that fled Cuba and things like that. But Miss Marco is going to tell you a sad story about incompetent leaders. And I want everybody to take this to heart, especially if you're a leftist. Feel his pain.
Yes, sir. Please, go ahead.
Yeah, is there a message here for Cuba and Diaz-Canel?
Well, Cuba is an interesting case. Cuba is, not doing very well right now. That system has not been a very good one for Cuba. The people there have suffered for many, many years. And I think Cuba is going to be something we'll end up talking about because Cuba is a failing nation right now, very badly failing nation. And we want to help the people. It's very similar in the sense that we want to help the people in Cuba, but we want to also help the people that were forced out of Cuba and living in this country. Do you want to say something about that, Marco, please?
Well, I mean, I just gave you a statement a few minutes ago about, when the president speaks, you should take him seriously. Suffice it to say, Cuba is a disaster. It's run by incompetent, senile men, and in some cases, not senile, but incompetent nonetheless. It has no economy. It's in total.
So, like, when he talks about senile, incompetent people. It's just so funny, this administration. Okay, but one more thing. Let's just stop and talk about Venezuela.
Wait, but
on this.
for Marco, though, I wanted to say about Marco Rubio before you go into that.
Yes,
Thank you so much also for having me on your show, by the way.
Of course.
Marco Rubio, his family did not leave during the Cuban Revolution. They left a few years before that. They fled Batista, the dictator Batista. Marco Rubio uses his parents' story as saying they fled Castro. Castro wasn't even in power. He overthrew Batista too. He was gathering guerrilla units before they left. He didn't even launch the Civil War yet before his parents left. So Marco Rubio's been using this story, but when you look back at his history, he's just giving you a lie. He doesn't know what he's talking about. He's just saying what the Cubans in Miami are saying. He don't reflect an actual person that was like chased out by Fidel. You know what I mean? He don't.
He seems to be having the time of his life in this administration. Marco Rubio is the only one having fun, I think, and he might actually give J.D. Vance a run for his money.
Descending into chaos. Part of that stabilization, and the reason why we understand and believe that we have the strongest leverage possible is our quarantine. As you've seen today, 2 more ships were seized. We are in the midst right now and in fact about to execute on a deal to take all the oil. They have oil that is stuck in Venezuela. They can't move it because of our quarantine. We're going to take
that was about narco-terrorism.
That money will then be handled in such a way that we will control how it is dispersed in a way that benefits the Venezuelan people, not corruption, not the regime. So we have a lot of leverage to move on the stabilization front. The second phase will be a phase that we call recovery. And that is ensuring that American, Western, and other companies have access to the Venezuelan market in a way that's fair. Also, at the same time, begin to create the process of reconciliation nationally within Venezuela so that the opposition forces can be amnestied and released and from prisons or brought back to the country and begin to rebuild civil society. And then the third phase, of course, will be one can be amnestied and released and from prisons or brought back to the country and begin to rebuild civil society. And then the third phase, of course, will be one of transition. Some of this
regime change. I think regime change in Iran is feasible.
This is simply not susceptible to diplomatic resolution. What we need is an overthrow of the regime in Tehran sooner rather than later.
And that if Sudan is not going to allow this transition, then we've got to take other stronger steps up to and including regime change in Khartoum. And I think that's actually the preferred result in Iran, regime change.
Our hope is that we can get a change in the regime in Caracas as soon as possible. For over 10 years since coming to these events, that the declared policy of the United States of America should be the overthrow of the mullah's regime.
Some of this will overlap. I've described this to them in great detail. We'll have more detail in days to follow. But we feel like we're moving forward here in a very positive way.
So how long will this take, Secretary?
Third phase, of course, will be one of transition. Some of this will overlap. I've described this to them in great detail. We'll have more detail in days to follow. But we feel like we're moving forward here in a very positive way.
So how long will this take?
Anyone who wants to respond, we can do a little question and answer back and forth afterwards. And to talk about, experiences of the real life, late stage capitalist, enthrallment, I guess, put it that way, of these corrupt politicians and their insane warmongering actions. There's nothing really else to say, but these people are criminals. Especially these two. Two of the biggest criminals in the world. Incompetent as well. Add that to the mix. Add incompetence to the mix of criminally insane. That's what you get, guys. It's like kind of Gotham City, except for the criminals not only incompetent, not only criminally insane, but incompetent. What do y'all think? He's someone who doesn't bend to the will of conventional wisdom. Someone who rebels, who questions authority. Check us out, especially if you're not with the partisan puppets, the peasants. If you're your own person and you're willing to see things in a clear, epistemological way, check us out. This is a piece from Forbes breaking news. I think you guys should hear an update.
Well, there's a lot of
on the
operational
Venezuela
details that can't be discussed publicly,
conflict.
obviously, for obvious reasons. So, as we move forward, we'll describe our process, which is a threefold process in Venezuela. I've described it to them now. Step one is the stabilization of the country. We don't want it descending into chaos. Part of that stabilization.
I thought step one was like the drugs. Remember the D-rugs? Step one was like, because the narco terrorism is the problem, right? It's killing Americans. Lots of them. I thought that's what the problem was.
And the reason why we understand and believe.
Listen to Marco Rubio talk about what the real problem is, guys. And I feel like I've been literally right this whole time. What do y'all think?
Have the strongest leverage possible is our quarantine. As you've seen today, 2 more ships were seized. We are in the midst right now and in fact about to execute on a deal to take all the oil. They have oil that is stuck in Venezuela. They can't move it because of our quarantine and because it's sanctioned. We are going to take between 30 and 50 million barrels of oil. We're going to sell it in the marketplace at market rates, not at the discounts Venezuela.
We're selling at market rate, bitches.
That money will then be handled in such a way
they're going to sell it at market rate.
Dispersed in a way that benefits the Venezuelan people.
I thought that we were talking about narco terrorism. I thought that was what this indictment was about. Isn't that what this indictment was about? Narco terrorism? Now you're talking about oil. So weird. You're talking about oil
corruption,
now.
Not the regime. So we have a lot of leverage to move on the stabilization front. The second phase.
It's almost like you guys were liars. And you were lying the whole time. It's almost like you guys didn't give a shit about drugs. I knew you didn't when you fucking let that drug lord out of prison early because he made a deal with Trump. I knew that. I knew then when you didn't care about drugs. I knew back during the Afghanistan surge when you were having the military soldiers collect poppy seeds. Hopefully now. We'll see.
Be a phase that we call recovery, and that is ensuring that American, Western, and other companies have access to the Venezuelan market in a way that's fair. Also, at the same time, begin to create the process of reconciliation nationally within Venezuela so that the opposition forces can be amnestied and released and from prisons or brought back to the country and begin to rebuild civil society. And then the third phase, of course, will be one of transition. Some of this will overlap. I've described this to them in great detail. We'll have more detail in the days to follow. But we feel like we're moving forward here in a very positive way.
So how long will this take, Secretary?
Some senators who were in that briefing describing your operation variously as that you're winging it, that there's no plan for Venezuela going forward.
Yeah, I know. They're going to say that. I used to be a senator too. That's what you always say when it's the other party. The bottom line is we've gone into great detail with them about the planning. We've described it to them. In fact, it's not just winging it. It's not just saying or speculating it's going to happen. It's already happening.
It's already happening.
The oil arrangement that we've made with PDVSA on their sanctioned oil that they can't move. Understand, they are not generating any revenue from their oil right now. They can't move it unless we allow it to move because we have sanctions, because we're enforcing those sanctions.
Did you guys hear that?
This is tremendous leverage. We are exercising it in a positive way. The president described it last night. Secretary will have more to say on it today, who's involved in running this portfolio. And we feel very positive that not only will that generate revenue that will be used to the benefit of the Venezuelan people, and we're
benefit
sure
of the Venezuelan people.
But it also
this guy cares. He's like such a humanitarian. He's going out of his way. This America First guy going out of his way to care about the Venezuelan people. So much to the point where he freezes their oil and their assets, claiming narco terrorism, and then he uses that as leverage to take their regime that they voted for democratically and throw that into the trash. That's amazing. This guy.
An amount of leverage and influence and control over how this process moves forward.
Mr. Secretary, on Denmark, sir. Mr. Secretary, on Denmark. Why has the administration not taken Denmark's offer to discuss the situation in Greenland?
Intend to buy Greenland. Can you clarify your comments to lawmakers this week?
Well, that's always been the president's intent from the very beginning. He said it very early on. I mean, this is not new. He talked about it in his first term, and he's not the first U.S. president that has examined or looked at how could we acquire Greenland. There's an interest there. But so I just reminded them of the fact that not only did Truman want to do it, but President Trump's been talking about this since his first term.
The White House put out a statement last night saying that the military option is on the table.
Yeah, Ms. Marco seems to be having the funnest time in the administration. In the administration, the second term, the person who's having the most funnest time has got to be Ms. Marco. This guy is literally ready to just give J.D. Vance a run for his money in 2028. I can tell. I can tell he's the one fomenting discord in the Republican Party about J.D. Vance. And you've got this little laughing, drunk bitch right next to him because he can smell the power. Can you smell the power? Is it the Estee Lauder? I know that's what you wear. You don't wear cologne. Does this guy look like he wears cologne? He looks like he wears like a fucking French perfume.
The military option is on the table. So is the administration really willing to risk the NATO alliance by potentially moving ahead?
Guys,
military?
what I think the White House said yesterday is what I will tell you now, and I've always said. The president maintained the option. If every president
doesn't shit. President doesn't give a shit about NATO. The president doesn't give a shit about NATO. NATO is there to literally be our puppets. And if they're not there to be our puppets, then what are you good for? Fat? You're in Iowa? You're black.
I'm just talking about globally. If the president identifies a threat to the national security of the United States, every president retains the option to address it through military means. As a diplomat, which is what I am now, and what we work on, we prefer to settle it in different ways. That included in Venezuela. We tried repeatedly to reach an outcome here that did not involve having to go in and grab an indicted drug trafficker. Those were unsuccessful, unfortunately.
The people of Venezuela are waking up to the same regime. Do you not worry about that?
Oh my God!
First of all,
we're so worried.
The bottom line is that there is a process now in place where we have tremendous control and leverage over what those interim authorities are doing and are able to do. But obviously, this will be a process of transition.
See, the difference now is that this regime that we left behind, they're literally shaking in their boots. They look under their beds for Pete Hegseth and Marco Rubio. And so they're our puppets now. So what the fuck do we have to worry about? We've taken their oil. We've given it to OPEC and all of the international corporations that do the campaign finance contributions of the Republican Party. So now, we have all this leverage. And so, for some reason, that correlates to helping the Venezuelan people. I don't even know how you can square that circle. But in any case, Marco,
in the end, it will be up to the Venezuelan people to transform their country. We are prepared under the right conditions, using the leverage that we have, which includes the fact that they cannot move any oil unless we allow them to move it to... Well, again, I'm not going to give you a timeline on it. We wanted to move as soon as possible. But we didn't expect this would... It's been 3 days since this happened, 4 days since this happened. So I understand that in this cycle and society we now live in, everyone wants instant outcomes. They want it to happen overnight. It's not going to work that way. But we're already seeing progress. With this new deal that's been announced and more deals to follow, you're already seeing how the leverage the United States has over those interim authorities is going to begin to lead to positive outcomes.
This does cost American taxpayers. How long
it doesn't cost us. It doesn't cost us.
The U.S. involvement in Venezuela. How much will it cost?
Well, it's not going to cost us any money. For example, this oil deal that's happening doesn't cost us any money. On the contrary, and if it opens up, look, I don't have the numbers. What operation are you talking about? The entire thing?
Yeah.
Well, these troops are going to be deployed. None of these troops sit in a dry dock waiting for action. They're deployed somewhere in the world. If they're not here, they're somewhere else. Just today, our forces not deployed to the Caribbean seized a boat, a sanctioned boat tied to the IRGC that tried to flee from us. That happened.
Now, everybody's trying to flee from you, Marco. Everybody's trying to flee from you because you're a psycho, murdering, kidnapping, raping psychopath. So that's why people are trying to run from you guys, because you guys are literal serial killers. You're kidnapping psychos. You're warmongering, cretin, criminal thugs. So every single boat in your vicinity is going to run from you. In fact, if I was in your vicinity, I'd run from you. And even if I wasn't on a boat, I'd run from you.
Action. We have boats in the Mediterranean. We have ships in the Middle East. We have ships in the
Indo-Pacific. We're on a boat, motherfucker.
These ships, if they weren't in the Caribbean, they'd be somewhere else.
We're on a boat.
Conducting activity.
That's
what the Navy does.
Yeah. I want to emphasize that.
Oh, God.
Question from
Not you.
CNN. The question's never asked how much does it cost when they're in the
Yo,
Mediterranean.
because nobody cares, bro. You're drunk. Go home. Go home to your wife.
Sea or the Indian Ocean or the Pacific. But now that they're in our hemisphere, on a counter-cartel mission or ensuring that an indicted individual comes to justice, now you're asking the question of cost. It's a disingenuous question to begin with. You're trying to find any angle possible to undermine the success of one of the most historic military missions the world has ever seen. The level of sophistication that Senate just...
It's probably one of the most illegal fucking acts of treason and the breaking of international treaties. It's probably the biggest violation of international treaties, like the Geneva Conventions and the Treaty of Versailles. It's probably the biggest coup and overthrow of a regime that we've seen in a more transparent way in the history of America. This mission that the world has never seen before, it is at a level of criminality unlike anything I've ever seen before. This mission that the world has never seen before, it is at a level of criminality I've never seen before.
Right? George Bush, Dick Cheney, and others, they said it was WMDs. They said it was democracy. They said it was Al-Qaeda. They at least pretended that it wasn't about the oil. Trump has spent the last 3 days non-stop telling us it's about the oil. So you have all these people on the right and in the center saying the sophisticated analysis is it's not about the oil. That's a conspiracy theory. And then you have Donald Trump comes out, as usual, throws them all under the bus, says, no, it's about the oil. He just can't stop talking about the oil. Every time he's asked about anything, he says, well, let's talk about oil. Oil company stocks are up. He gave oil companies a heads up that he didn't give members of Congress at Mar-a-Lago. He hosted a bunch of oil company executives and said, give me $1 billion and I'll help you all out. He's helping them out. He's enjoying himself. This is what he likes. He's not actually done a full regime change. He's kept the Maduro government in place, Delcy Rodríguez, the vice president, in place, as long as she plays ball on the oil.
As long as she plays.
I think it's like a pivot point in history, and I don't fully understand what it means. It is a totally new way of conducting diplomacy / foreign policy / military action. Like, this is a new thing because Trump didn't dress it up with a lot of lying about democracy or human rights. He's like, no, we want the oil, and like, this guy's bad, and we're taking him out, and we're going to run it.
We're going to run it, essentially. We're going to have our very large United States oil companies go in and start making money for the country.
No one alive has seen anything like that before in the United States. No one alive has seen anything like that before in the United States. And that's why I'm saying I think we're